The initial probably inspiration for the report can really be traced back to 2019 when there was this really important conference, Uzinvest, which was convened at Glaciers Hall on the Thames in London. And it was organised by the government and it was designed to be Uzbekistan's Davos, which was this kind of premier VIP event for the international business and policy-making community, where they could come and meet with Uzbekistan's policymakers and their business community and learn about why Uzbekistan should be regarded, in effect, as the most exciting emerging market in the world today. At least that's what the government was hoping that people would take away from this big event in London. And at the event, I noticed that there was all this iconography of this brand called Orient Group. And it was everywhere.
Orient Group described itself as one of the largest private conglomerates in Uzbekistan, with over 25,000 workers. There is no official list of all entities which are part of Orient Group. Investigation identified 58 locally incorporated companies in Uzbekistan that are either direct part of the Orient Group or affiliated with it.
Who stands behind the Orient Group? How on earth have they managed to expand seemingly at such an astronomical rate? And I felt that the answers to those questions would tell us a lot about the nature of the reform process that has been initiated by President Mirziyoyev.
There is a major shareholder in the group, Aybek Umarov. He is the brother of Atabek Umarov, deputy head of President's Security Service and also son-in-law of President Mirziyoyev. Then there is Babur Parpiyev, chairman of a supervisory board. Previously, Babur Parpiyev was chairman of Orient Finance Bank's management board. He is a son of Batır Parpiyev, a deputy minister of family and community affairs. Previously, Batır Parpiyev was chairman of the State Tax Committee, one of the most powerful institutions under the previous president Islam Karimov's government. There are three other individuals who are in charge of Orient Group: Fayzullah Mirzayev, Saken Pulatov, and Dilmurod Pulatov.
As we began to investigate the Orient Group, I think one of the things that became apparent was that it had significant political exposure. Politically exposed persons is a term that is commonly used within the anti-corruption community, and it's set out in international law, and it designates people who are either in senior government positions or who have previously been in senior government positions, or people who are family members or very intimate business partners of people who are in senior state positions. We asked the Orient Group themselves whether there were additional individuals with political exposure, and unfortunately we were unable to get an answer from them with regard to that question.
When current company records were consulted, the charter capital or equity funds of companies founded before September 2016, President Karimov's era, was $276 million. Charter capital of companies founded after September 2016, President Mirziyoyev's era, and the company's investigation was able to trace, is $452 million. 26 of companies which were founded during Mirziyoyev's era were founded between November 2016 and December 2018. The charter capital of these companies is $432 million.
What this told us was that the Orient Group had almost tripled in size if measured by charter capital in a very small window of time, and this obviously prompted a question for us is what was or what is the jet fuel that has helped the Orient Group lift off so rapidly during the Mirziyoyev era? And what we found was that some of the biggest chunks of the Orient Group, measured by charter capital, had benefited from a pretty advantageous relationship with two investors. The first was the Uzbek Oman Investment Company. There was another big investor, again, a state-owned investor, and that was Uzbekistan Railways.
The Uzbek Oman Investment Company is a private equity firm set up in 2009. Statutory capital is provided from the Sultanate of Oman, 75%, and the government of Uzbekistan, 25%. The aim of the company is to invest these funds in a diverse range of businesses for the mutual benefits of both countries. Headquarter address 95A Amir Timur Avenue, Tashkent, Uzbekistan, the same address as the Orient Group.
The investment program of the Uzbek Oman Investment Company began in 2016, and they've invested $200 million in various ventures and projects in Uzbekistan. We were able to trace 187 million of that investment, and that revealed that 86% of the investment had gone into one corporate group, and you probably don't need to guess who that corporate group is, the Orient Group. We asked them to give us some information on how these investments were made. Was it an open process? Did they put a tender out? Were there other companies vying? And what were their assessment criteria? And how did they come to the conclusion in nearly all the cases to hand that the Orient Group were really the best company to invest in and not other companies in the relevant sectors? And unfortunately, we didn't get an answer to those questions.
A company like Uzbek Oman Investment Company should be making its investments, which is public money, to a variety of businesses in Uzbekistan.
It was troubling to see that 86% of the investment we could trace had gone into one group only. That would not appear to be a good way of spreading this investment across a diverse range of businesses in Uzbekistan to ensure that they were all able to benefit. It doesn't seem to be a good way of managing risk, because obviously were anything to happen to the Orient Group, that would potentially put in peril the very existence of the Uzbek Oman Investment Company.
A key pillar of the Orient Group's recent success has been the expansion of its heavy industry and logistics portfolios. This wouldn't have been possible without the support of Uzbekistan Railways, state monopolist operating all railroads across the country.
We found they had invested $30 million in the Orient Group, but that was almost certainly underestimating the total investment, because due to certain limitations in the commercial information that's available currently in Uzbekistan, you can only see the current investments in companies. You can't see historical data.
The Orient Group is owned in part by offshore companies from Scotland, Moldova, Latvia, and Switzerland. Our investigation traced 8 Scottish limited partnerships which have current investment in Orient Group. They included Downtown Distribution LP with an investment of $26.6 million, Castle Import Export LP with an investment of around $140,000, Just Equities LP with an investment of $9.7 million, Good Supplies LP with an investment of over $20 million, Yard Rock Development LP with an investment of $21 million, Empire Industrial Services LP with an investment of $38.9 million US, Maxim Global Investments LP with $938,000 US, and Major Wholesale Supplies LP with an investment of $10 million US. Scottish limited partnerships were identified by the UK government and the UK law enforcement agencies as legal entities that have been frequently abused and used for money laundering and fraud purposes.
We already know the Orient Group itself is a politically exposed entity, and obviously we can't fully survey the political exposure of the Orient Group because it uses offshore companies like Scottish Limited Partnerships where we can't find out who actually owns them.
These unknown and obscure offshore holding companies, whose beneficiary owners cannot be identified, invested around $145 million US to various Orient Group companies.
Major contracts from government agencies like Uzbekistan Railways, and it's received other benefits from state-owned entities. Not being able to know fully who the beneficial owners are of the Orient Group does raise governance risks that are significant, and we were able to find out who those owners were by going to the Orient Group directly. So for all those reasons, I think it is concerning that these offshore entities have been used. It's concerning that when we've asked the Orient Group for further details, they haven't been forthcoming. And I think it's concerning that allied actors who are investing in the Orient Group don't appear to be asking questions about who stand behind these Scottish limited partnerships.
Our investigation concluded that current arrangement between Orient Group and Uzbekistan Railways and Uzbek Oman Investment Company is not in the public interest for a range of reasons.
From our investigations, there did not appear to be open competition presiding over these relationships, and therefore they would appear to be anti-competitive. Ostensibly, there's also concerns of the potential of political favoritism, and that's not a direct allegation against anyone in the Orient Group, but that's simply to say that the Orient Group is politically exposed because it has a shareholder and a senior executive with close family links to senior state officials, and they appear to have got very beneficial treatment by a number of state entities. It's very important that the new anti-corruption agency does a thorough investigation into the relationship between the Orient Group and the Uzbek Oman Investment Company and Uzbekistan Railways. Now, that's not to say anything illegal has taken place or that anything criminal has taken place, but there are enough warning signs there to warrant a thorough investigation. We've also recommended that the Anti-Monopoly Committee conduct its own investigations into these arrangements to ensure they're in compliance with the anti-monopoly laws in Uzbekistan. We've also suggested that UK authorities should conduct investigations into the 8 Scottish limited partnerships that are part of the Orient Group. And finally, we've also suggested reforms with respect to companies law in Uzbekistan. So there's much greater levels of corporate governance required of companies and much greater public transparency